RPN, the Roddenberry Podcast Network.
This episode of Mission Log is brought to you by Eaglemoss Hero Collector and the brand new The Orville Official Ships Collection. The first ships in the collection, including the Orville itself, are available now at herocollector.com/Orville. Use code MISSION10 at checkout to get 10% off your purchase with free shipping.
Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, Episode 380, Soldiers of the Empire.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Norman Lau. Each week on Mission Log, our mission is to bring glory to your house and ours by examining each and every episode of Star Trek for its morals, meanings, and messages.
This week, Soldiers of the Empire, also known as the one where Martok gets his groove back. Wait, hang on. Seriously, does everybody on DS9 have to get their groove back at some point?
Well, see, we got Quark, we got Odo, we got Worf, Martok. Yep. Pretty much everyone's getting their groove back. It's a theme. It's a perennial theme on DS9, so
right.
I guess we got to roll with it,
okay.
Right?
All right.
I don't know how you all feel about it, but while you're kind of sorting it out, how you feel about it, I'll let everyone know where to reach us on the interweb. So Mission Log relies on your participation. That's why we want to hear from you. Help us spread the word by giving us a like or a share on Facebook or Twitter, or you'll find us at Mission Log Pod. Your reviews at Apple Podcasts help other people find the show, and we do appreciate it. You can reach us on Skype at Mission Log Pod or by calling 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. And remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log.
Hey, we'll get to trivia in just a second, but first a quick word from our friends at Eaglemoss and the Orville. So yes, this is the collection from the Orville developed in partnership and based on Seth MacFarlane's hit science fiction comedy drama. It's the ships from the brand new The Orville Official Ships Collection, available only from Eaglemoss Hero Collector.
Now, the first ships in this collection, the Planetary Union ship, the USS Orville ECV-197, and its shuttle, the ECV-197-1, are available right now directly from the Eaglemoss shop for only $29.95 each, with free shipping. There's even an oversized XL edition of the Orville, which is fabulous, by the way. And that's available for $74.95. Now, no matter what you order, use Mission10, the code Mission10 at checkout to get 10% off your entire purchase. Now, the Orville ships are based on a careful study of the models created for use in the series. These highly detailed ships are made of die-cast metal and high-quality ABS materials, then hand-painted for stunning accuracy. Each ship also comes with a display base, a collector's magazine filled with concept art, interviews, and behind-the-scenes details of the Orville TV series.
Hey, by the way, I mentioned a while back when we started talking about these ships that I saw the originals on display at Comic-Con one year, and I'm telling you, that, the ship design, I love the fact that they use so much practical models. It's not all CG, so of course they had great reference material to build these, and I fell in love with those designs and so happy to see them so accurately reproduced here. I was just, I was stunned, blown away, and of course very pleased because Eaglemoss pulled it off again. So in addition to those two, additional ships are slated to join the collection soon, but these are the ones you want to get while you can. Full details, including comprehensive views of each ship and ordering information, can be found at herocollector.com/Orville. Again, use our code MISSION10, that's MISSION, and then the number 10 at checkout to get 10% off your entire purchase.
And now, back to Star Trek, because that's why we're here, to talk about Star Trek, and here to talk about this week's trivia is John Champion once again, this time with 100% more honor.
Oh, thank you. 100% more honor and 100% more Star Trek. So, Soldiers of the Empire. We have a script and a story written by Ronald D. Moore. No surprise there at all. Ron is the go-to Klingon guy, as we have stated before, and it was Ira Steven Behr who told Ron he wanted what would amount to a classic Klingon adventure story, and that's what he got. This was directed by LeVar Burton. Now, LeVar directed more episodes of DS9 than he did for any of the other Trek series, but we are getting toward the end of his run here, just 3 more to go, and then we will catch up with him again on Voyager and Enterprise. We get a good amount of Klingon singing here, 2 renditions of the Warriors' Anthem. This is one of those great examples of Star Trek's expanded universe referencing itself. The song had appeared before in the Star Trek Klingon CD-ROM game, but was not on screen until this episode. Now let's talk about guest stars. We get to meet a whole lot of Klingons in this episode, but there are really 4 that take center stage. First up is Ortikan, played by Scott Leva. It shouldn't be a surprise here at all that very often when you see Klingon or Jem'Hadar in smaller roles, then you are seeing a stunt performer who gets to do a little acting when the episode calls for it. And that's what happens here with Scott, who has over 200 credits as a stuntman going back to the 1970s. Interestingly, the only credits that he has for Star Trek as a stuntman is with The Undiscovered Country. So he gets acting credit a few times on Trek in Next Gen, DS9, and again on Voyager, but this is the only time that he appears as a Klingon. Ortikan's girlfriend, the engineer on board the Rotaran, is Tavana, played by Sandra Nelson, an actor with a solid number of TV guest credits and a long recurring gig on The Young and the Restless throughout the late 90s. She even has some feature film credits to her name, like Wolf of Wall Street. She has 1 other Trek credit in the 3rd season of Voyager. Then there are the ornery and abrasive Klingons Lesket and Kornan. Rick Worthy plays Kornan. So this is the first time we've talked about Rick, but it certainly won't be the last. Remember that video game that I just mentioned a moment ago? Well, that is his first Trek credit. But from here on out, he racks up a very impressive run, playing no fewer than 5 different characters between this, his only DS9 appearance, then Voyager, and then on to Enterprise. In addition to that, Rick just keeps turning up everywhere in prominent recurring roles on The Magicians, The Man in the High Castle, Supernatural, and definitely do not forget him as Simon in Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica. Finally, David Graff plays Lesket. Without all the Klingon makeup, David worked constantly for more than 20 years as an actor in TV and feature films. While this is his only DS9 appearance, he does turn up in a guest role on Voyager, and he also provided his voice talents to a number of Star Trek video games. If you're anything like me, you probably saw every single Police Academy movie replayed on cable in the 80s and 90s, where you no doubt would recognize David as Tackleberry. Now, tragically, David died from a sudden heart attack at the age of 50 in 2001. The entire Police Academy cast attended his funeral.
It is a tale full of sound and fury, signifying that Worf is still growing into the command uniform. Let's recruit the soldiers of the Empire.
Prologue. General Martok has been hitting the holosuite combat simulations a little hard for a guy who has spent the last couple of years in Jem'Hadar prison. He's not as quick on the reflexes as he once was, and now he's in the infirmary with injuries that are being tended to by Dr. Bashir. A call comes for the general, though, with an important mission. He is to command the bird of prey Rotaran in search of a missing Klingon battlecruiser, the Bemoth, near the Cardassian border, and the general wants Worf to be his first officer on the adventure. Act 1. Klingon adventure on a bird of prey with General Martok? Heck yeah, Worf is on board. These two also share a bond from the prison, one where he and Worf shared a moment when Worf was ready to give up and die until feeling Martok's encouragement. It's a Klingon thing Captain Sisko probably wouldn't understand, but he does enough. With permission from his captain, it's time to get the crew together. Let's see, there's big, scary Klingon guy, then there's other big, scary Klingon guy, to name a few, as they drop into Quark's bar before the mission. Seated elsewhere are the DS9 crew who are dividing up Worf's duties for the time he'll be away. Then there's Worf himself, who is now in his traditional Klingon warrior uniform, but since there is no more House of Mogh, he has foregone the sash this time. Dax sees him off to the airlock where he'll board the Rotaran and she'll say goodbye, only she's not saying goodbye. She's going with him. Say hello to Science Officer Jadzia Dax of the IKS Rotaran. She wastes no time ingratiating herself to the crew. There's scary guys from Quark's bar earlier who just don't know what to make of her. Then there's the Klingon woman, T'Vana, the engineering officer, whose mother knew Dax's former host, Curzon. Kornan, the weapons officer, hands over the ship's log to Worf, and it's readily apparent that the ship has not exactly performed gloriously in battle. That's a bit of a bummer for the crew. But when Martok enters and gives the command to pull away from Deep Space Nine, they all snap to attention and do their jobs. Just one thing, though. Martok's first order has them adding a day onto their mission in order to avoid a potential fight with the Jem'Hadar who are hiding out in a nebula. The order does not sit well with the helmsman, Lesket, but Worf snaps him back into place. You don't just question the general's orders. And with that, the flying and the singing commence. Act 2. Dax continues to become one with the crew, first by smacking around the Klingon who took her seat in the mess hall, then by announcing she brought 3 barrels of blood wine on board, a treat this crew hasn't seen for months. Morale is lower than low. Martok knows it, and Worf knows it, but they'll have to do what they can, keeping their crew safe, but also making them ready for battle. Meanwhile, back in the mess hall, barbs are traded, jabs are taken, verbally this time around. Kornan even thinks they're cursed. But it ends when the call comes that a Jem'Hadar patrol ship has been spotted. Before going to stations, Kornan tells Dax that either death or dishonor will visit them this day. Act 3. With the Rotaran cloaked, it could have been an easy victory, but Martok says no. As the Jem'Hadar pull away, the order is given to do nothing and resume their original course. Lesket is not impressed. Even Worf is starting to wonder about these orders, and quietly Dax tells him that Martok is going to have an even more dangerous situation on his hands if this crew never tastes victory. Martok knows what's on his crew's mind. He asks Worf if he's got his back, and of course Worf says yes. But what these two don't know is that at this very moment, things are getting heated in the mess hall. Lesket is full of blood wine and vinegar, shouting about how Martok fears the Jem'Hadar and their superiority. That leads to him getting pummeled by Kornan until Dax can use her phaser to stun them into submission. Now she's going to have to make Worf get with the program. These Klingons are so beaten down, so low on morale, that they will tear each other apart before Martok can deliver to them the victory they need. Act 4. Hey, remember the Bamoth and the crew that needs rescuing? Well, Dax found them some 7 light-years away, so they'll set a course. On the way, T'Vana drops a little intel on Dax that the fighting will begin on board, but maybe just this once, Kornan will play it cool like when he comes onto the bridge and T'Vana puts him in his place. Martok is agonizing over the news. Why would the Jem'Hadar leave survivors? He suspects it's a trap, while Worf says there could be other explanations. But Martok spent more time with the Jem'Hadar than Worf. He knows them, and this isn't like them. The general is really worked up over what may come, but Worf repeats that they have no tactical information. As they get close to the damaged Bemoth, Martok again gets cold feet. The crew needs to be rescued, but they've drifted into Cardassian space at this point. Jem'Hadar are surely waiting nearby to attack. Worf says that they would have attacked by now, but the crew of the Bemoth needs to be rescued. Martok refuses. Even if it means leaving dozens of Klingons adrift to die, he's not going to risk the lives of his own crew at the prospect of an attack. And anyone who questions his orders will be reported for treason. When Martok leaves the bridge, Dax asks Worf what he's going to do. There's only one option. He'll have to challenge the general for command of the ship, or kill him in the process. Act 5. The rest of the crew now see a challenge to Worf. They think Martok must die, but it's not their decision to make. Worf calls for stations because he has made the decision to rescue the Bemoth crew. When Martok realizes what's happening, he returns to the bridge to challenge Worf in the most Klingon way possible with a knife fight. They really go at it, and Worf seems to have the upper hand. When the opportunity presents itself, though, Martok gets in a non-fatal blow on Worf, sending him to the medical ward with Dax. That was all the motivation Martok and his crew needed. With renewed enthusiasm, they take position just as a Jem'Hadar warship approaches. Martok takes command. There's singing, there's fighting, there's rescuing. You'll have to use your imagination, because before you know it, we're back at DS9, where a victorious IKS Rotaran returns under command of General Martok with 35 rescued crew from the Bemoth. They'll need some battle damage repaired, and they'll need 15 barrels of blood wine stat. Much later at Quark's Bar, General Martok informs Worf that the Klingon High Council has commended the crew of the Rotaran and fully excuses them for crossing the Cardassian border. On a personal note, the general also says he understands Worf's motivations while they were on board, and he thanks him for behaving with honor. In fact, he would be honored if Worf would now join the House of Martok as a warrior and as family. The end.
So that was a fabulous summarization, John. And I just want to let you know that you've influenced me in so many ways to think about this episode. And if I had a writer's hat, I'd put it on right now and retitle this episode "Dax Without Dishonor."
That is a good title. See, we were going to leave behind the so and so gets their groove back, and we'll go with that.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think between you and I, we're pretty creative people. I think that if we move forward with focusing on the more positive aspects of this episode,
there you go.
Yeah, let's
see, Martok. Yeah, I do not want an artificial eye. Look, for one, I think it would be cool. I mean, look at Geordi. He does fine with the visor, and then with an actual artificial eye, or at least an implant in his real eye. Is it dishonorable for Klingons to be partly bionic? Because that could give them a huge advantage. I think it's a great thing.
One would think.
Right.
Or, I mean, it must have been tough for JG, because, JG has to work underneath that prosthetic. Yeah. Doesn't look like, based on the close-ups, that it's perforated so that he can see underneath that appliance.
Yeah.
So he is blind in one eye, technically.
Mess with your depth perception, yeah.
I think that they should have pulled the touchstone from 1991 and just, like General Chang's bolted on eye patch.
So cool.
And done something with that.
Yeah, that's just a Klingon thing. I love it. It should be.
You know what struck me funny, and it stood out to me really early on. Well, this is in the in the cold opening, but that Bajoran medtech that was working with Dr. Bashir.
Oh yeah.
That was a color combination of uniform I'm not quite used to. It was orange with blue, with like the blue body styling.
Yeah, right.
It was really cool.
I don't think I've seen that before. And just going to throw it out there now a great deep cut for cosplay.
Exactly. I was I thought that was just neat. It's like I said, that just took me by surprise. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've seen every configuration of color. And they're not usually kind of that ostentatious about their color palette. So,
Let's see. I do love Dax joining this crew. I mean, we've we've had many faces of Dax and many facets explored of Dax, and particularly Jadzia Dax. Right?
Facets.
Boom.
I got
there you go.
on that. I got you.
But this is what I love to see her play. And she knows probably more Klingon stuff than Worf, and they really took good advantage of that in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think Dax is the best Klingon I've seen so far on Deep Space Nine.
Pretty much. She really is, yeah. And then, there was such a great exchange with T'Vana saying Curzon was very taken with many people. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Dax says Curzon was taken with many people, and then T'Vana says, so was my mother. Just so many ways that I love this exchange. Just a couple of lines, but it really says it all. And then followed up very shortly with Worf's little speech when he enters the bird of prey. Oh, just so almost like adorably awkward. Like he's going to come in there and use his big boy voice and announce to everybody who he is and get the ship's log. And I mean, first of all, I have to wonder, does everybody coming on to a Klingon ship announce their position this way? Like right. The cook, the guy who sweeps the hallways, do they all come in and do the same thing? Because
I am the cook.
Just so self-important. I love it.
It's funny that it's done so dramatically, because I think they're trying to make a cultural point, when it comes to this. But it is nice to see that not every single Klingon in the monoculture that we've seen so far on Deep Space Nine and in Next Generation, because they really do focus on the kind of like just the warriors culture of it. They all don't toe the line as hard as Worf does. Worf is exceptional when it comes to the epitome of what an honorable Klingon warrior should be, and what he believes every Klingon should be. And so when he walks into that situation, it kind of like reminded me of like a Heartbreak Ridge. That kind of a movie where you have like the tropish, very disciplined officer. He walks into like a room full of ne'er-do-wells and has to get him ship shape before the very end, because that's when the big heroic thing has to happen, and they all got to pull together. But also it just kind of makes me wonder. General Martok's a legend, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Why do they give him such a bum crew on a bum ship?
Yeah, I mean, that's really true, because it's a couple of things. It's the legend who everybody on the Klingon homeworld, every Klingon soldier everywhere should just be, shocked and amazed and thrilled beyond belief that, whoa, the real Martok has been found. He's, coming out of this Jem'Hadar prison. Wow, we can't wait to get him back in the driver's seat. But no, he's going to be on the Rotaran. And it's, not...
It's like he's a general of his kind of reputation and renown, has got to work his way back up.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that strange?
Right, it is weird. And then I love it. He gets right to work, like, set a course around that thing. Just like, don't get us anywhere near anything dangerous. I do love the singing both of the renditions of the anthem, because at first it's just a little, like, they're trying a little too hard. They're just like, okay, we'll do this. It's by rote. But then that second time around, they're so into it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I almost kind of wish they had that trail off into space, say like the way the Russian choral arrangement was in Red October.
Yes. Such a great soundtrack and such a great moment in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see, we got a shout out to the garbage scow. I don't think we've specifically called a ship a garbage scow since Trouble with Tribbles. And then, also good to hear the return of Kelicams. And by the way, Google Docs corrected Kelicams correctly. So that was nice to see that. I guess it's made it into computer vernacular. And then also their own method of dating. So 53rd day of the year of Kalas, 999. So...
John,
nice little details.
I'm sorry if I have to be that guy, John, to correct your trivia, but we did get another version of Garbage Scow in Trials and Tribulations.
Oh, we did? Oh, of course, yeah. So, yeah.
I'm just saying, right
from Trouble with Tribbles, yes. Yeah.
And in terms of Kelicams, if only we got John Larroquette, like a soundbite of his in the background, like 500,000 Kelicams.
I love it. The first time we ever heard that phrase was in Star Trek 3, and it just is one of those things that it's new. It's new information. It's a new cultural detail, but it just fits like it's been there forever. You know?
Right.
So good.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that sound perfect, I love that one of the crew comments in the roster was admonishing him for being insufficiently aggressive. That's just perfectly Klingon. Love that. And now I did wonder if the crew of the Rataran have been beaten again and again by the Jem'Hadar. Why are any of them still alive? Because, as Martok points out, like the B'Math is out there, and if it were really the Jem'Hadar, they just would have wiped them all out with impunity. So, but I did, every time that they ran away from the fight, all I could think about was just Monty Python, run away! Because Leskin has that line, he's like, we could run away from battle faster than any ship in the quadrant.
I know, he's so angry. He's so angry. It would have been funny if, like, Worf's like, do you think we would confuse them if we ran away more?
Yeah, right. right. Now, there is something that I want to point out here that is a plot detail that I purposely kind of obscured in my recap, and that is that in the mess hall, so no letters, please. In the mess hall, the fight is really, it's Lesket shooting his mouth off, and then it's Kornan jumping in, but the fight that Dax breaks up specifically with the phaser is against Ortikan. Now, that whole plot point that then is supposed to have some sort of payoff at the end on the bridge, it does not work. It doesn't play, and worse than that, it's completely unnecessary. It's a wasted moment. It's really too bad because they were trying to clue you in on all these mini relationships with the Klingons, which is fine. That's what a writer needs to do, and it's what actors need to do to give it life. But in this case, it was a misfire. So, specifically, I just kind of blew past it in the recap. But I wanted to leave my note here for that, and I'm not going to revisit that because it's not even worth mentioning in our final wrap-up. But
yeah, I think that Dax was trying to allude the fact that there was going to be some type of massive insubordination, i.e. mutiny, that was building within the crew ranks and the lower
exactly,
decks.
But it is literally just three guys. It's Ortikan and two guys coming in, and you haven't sufficiently built that plot point, and you haven't sufficiently built Dax's connection to drop that information. It just, honestly, you don't need it. You don't need it at all, because all you need is really just Worf sitting in the chair saying, I'm making the decisions, you don't get to decide who lives and who dies. And then Martok coming back to the bridge, oh, no, you didn't. And, Klingon knife fight. That's really all you need, And I will say this as far as like the plot and the structuring, very Shakespearean thing to do. The character drama plays out on screen, but the plot happens elsewhere. So specifically the rescue of the B'Math crew and destroying the Jem'Hadar ship. And I really liked that decision. The first time I watched it, it kind of surprised me. Maybe I was falling asleep, and I just thought, like, wait, did I miss an action scene? But then the second and third time I watched it, I really respected that because it just let us focus on the crew, and that was cool.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I found a little strange is that, like Martok and the crew were at odds because they were supposed to approach the B'Math and try and get to transporter range and try and do the right thing by the crew and try and figure out if they're Jem'Hadar laying in wait. So why didn't they cloak? And and survey the area and try and find heat signatures or energy signatures. And if not, drop cloak, have everyone ready to beam them aboard, drop back into cloak, and you're out
classic
of there.
Classic DS9 thing. You cloak the ship and you literally park it right under the B'Math. And then you decloak for that moment you need to bring them on, and then you get out of there. Yeah.
But they were arguing the fact that of the very purpose of that ship. It's a scout ship, right? So you go in there, you scout,
right,
using the technology that allows you to scout undetected.
Yeah.
So why are they arguing about it, right? I was like,
exactly. By the way, very surprised that at this point in the series, Peter Allen Fields is no longer a regular on the DS9 staff, because if I had to pin this exchange of dialogue to anybody, it would be Peter Allen Fields. How's the intelligence business? Oh, I can't talk about it. Great. Just a great line. Great line. That's,
right.
of course, the Chief and Dr. Bashir.
I thought it was interesting that they gave the intelligence officers responsibilities to like the secret agent wannabe, that's Bashir.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure that somewhere along the line he was kind of doing his best rendition of Garrick. Like you said, how's the intelligence? Oh, intelligence business? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. Yes.
Let me file these intelligence reports.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I did like that Worf did take one for the team, like, honestly. Like, he trusted his instinct, and that he knew that the fight to the death with Martok wouldn't be a fight to the death, it would be a fight to the pain.
Right.
For all of you people out there that know that reference, good for you. So it was a fight to the pain, and it was painful, right? So, I mean, he did stick Worf, and he sold it. He sold what he needed to sell. He sold his position of leadership, and he said, this is my bridge, and you can go take a hike to the infirmary with a giant knife wound in your stomach. Also, I did like the bookend that the injury that Bashir was treating Martok for at the beginning was the same injury that he took from Worf at the end. Same arm.
Oh, I did not notice that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And at first, I thought that when he and Worf were training at the beginning, all of this was a ruse to get this ship up to par, and the fight between Martok and Worf was just a play at it, not an actual fight. Because when I saw him, I was like, hey, look, he cut himself the exact same way.Maybe that was supposed to happen, but not as badly when Bashir was treating him. But no, it's just that Martok is really bad defending that particular side of his dagger fight.
I think we got to come back to that in the next segment for sure.
Even if there was a book called How to Win Friends and Influence Klingons, would it have been much help with this crew?
Norman used a word earlier in our discussion that was the one that always comes up when we talk of things Klingon, and that is monoculture. And there is a lot of the same old with Klingons, and I would agree with you that to date, in our rewatch, they have not been as well developed as the Cardassians, even though we have had less time with the Cardassians. But I do really appreciate it when they try to break out of that a bit and show you a bit more of Klingon life, Klingon culture, and just some variance in who the individuals are. So this was an episode that I feel like tried to do that, and even at the beginning, call out some of the problems with Klingon culture, or at least the perception of those Klingon problems. So you have DS9 crew sitting around saying like, oh yeah, they kill each other to ascend the ranks, and you can't really do that. You can't run a ship with everyone trying to kill each other all the time. That was a problem that we always point out with the Mirror Universe. You might be able to achieve power that way, but you can't maintain, you can't grow an empire that way. And it's cool to see Dax call them out and say, well, no, it's not exactly like that. There are some rules in place. There are some kind of cultural expectations around that. So it's more complicated than you think. But what we do see here is we see Klingons who are a little stronger, some who are weaker, some who are older, and have different backgrounds and different relationships within the crew. And again, as I said before, it's just very cool to have Dax on board for this. This is the Dax that I like to see. But getting to something that you mentioned a moment ago about Martok and about sort of the theater of all of this is that perception is reality. And the Klingons are all engaged in this kind of theater that underlines their sense of order and hierarchy and purpose of why they're there. Worf and Martok are doing a show at the end of this show in order to get people in line around the mission that they need to carry out. And if they don't do that show, they're not going to get these people in line to do the job that they need to do. I thought that was such an interesting part of this. And it might even speak to what we don't see on screen here, which is the quote-unquote show of getting Martok just back on board and in command of any type. It's like you can say okay, well, yeah, we got Martok back from the Jem'Hadar. Oh, look, he's a commander again. He's going to go do stuff. We'll give him an easy mission this time.
See, that's something that I was trying to reconcile with myself when I was watching this episode. Exactly why would General Martok need any type of, say, support from a first officer, especially a first officer who, in the eyes of many Klingons, has either disgraced himself or his house? Like, what value does having Worf attach himself to Martok's side as his first officer, his attaché to Deep Space Nine, first of all, with a reputation of being a Starfleet officer and somewhat of a turncoat, to his own people? We saw that all the way back when Worf was put on trial. So exactly where's the redemption for either character joining forces? And I thought that, yes, there was something that was very theatrical about he and Worf fighting it out for command. And it proves to their crew that General Martok is the General Martok of old. He understands their traditions. He understands the culture. But do you think that was the right time to have your command structure in total disarray? I mean, think about it. Your ship was uncloaked. All of the stations were unmanned. They were deep inside enemy territory, with Martok concerned about maybe 5 or 6 Jem'Hadar warships, of which one would have been sufficient to kill that bird of prey, laying in wait. It just seems strange to me that they didn't want to put that on hold and say, for another time. I just never felt like Martok's authority was really invested in that entire command structure.
Well, remember, he's coming from a really weird place. Like, we don't know where his head has been now for 2 years with the Jem'Hadar. And I feel like Gowron's a bit of a loose cannon. Gowron might be somebody that you don't trust fully. But I think Gowron is the kind of Klingon that would see the value in having somebody with General Martok's name recognition in a mission that could succeed and could be valuable and could be a victory for the Klingons to be able to point out and say, oh, look, hey, they did this thing. Or if he died in battle, well, for the Klingons, that's maybe just as good as succeeding. Oh, we just get to say, oh, the Honorable General Martok died in battle. He died on a dangerous, perilous, important mission. So for them, it's really kind of a win-win. As far as putting Worf in there, that really, to me, goes back to that scene with Sisko, which is that whatever it is that Martok has been through, like that moment with Worf was super important to him. Worf is a big part of the reason. I mean, he really is crucial to the reason that they got out of that Jem'Hadar prison asteroid. So he owes something to Worf in that respect. Worf saved his life in that respect. Yeah. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, maybe for this mission, you're picking the wrong guy to be the first officer. Maybe you need to more slowly ingratiate him back into Klingon life. But hey, look, but if they all succeed, which they did here, now you've got this crew that rallies behind both of them. So the stakes, it's, again, this isn't about the Bemoth. It isn't about fighting Jem'Hadar. It's about them sort of saving face and finding their motivation, finding their inner strength, Well,
I mean, it goes all the way back to saving face and honor and what that means to the Klingon culture. And I understand that, as far as I've seen so far in Star Trek, a hierarchy of Klingon command, General Martok need not have to explain himself to anyone. He rose to the rank of general for very specific reasons. So when he walks on that ship, you will toe the line or, you will have to face disciplinary action, period. Yeah. So there's no real reason for, again, from what I understand, there's no real reason for somebody to have to step up for him. He is a general of the Imperial, the Klingon Empire, their Imperial Navy. So, which begs this question now. And I want to say this in the most respectful way possible to all of the Klingon fans out there.
Here it comes.
And I know I'm probably tempting fate in a lot of emails. and canon itself probably, but everything that I've learned from Klingons, say from the TNG era to now, it's a culture, it's a monoculture that prides itself on strength and honor. They mention that time and again ad nauseum. So, what does this culture of strength and honor need with a cloaking device?
Yeah, that is a good question. I would think that the only way that they could try to justify that as Klingons is to say, all right, look, this is a tool in our arsenal. We have disruptors, we have photon torpedoes, we have batleths, we have all these tools that we use to fight our enemies with. One of our enemies, the Romulans, has a cloaking device. So we're also going to have that tool in our arsenal. But at the same time, it's like, okay, how are they using this? I think you make a good point about how they could have used it strategically to, get closer to the behemoth, figure out the situation tactically. But then, look, if you're going to get into a fight with Jem'Hadar, that cloak has got to come down anyway. They can't fight at all with that thing on, right? Yeah.
Right. And I guess it goes more towards my lack of understanding of the culture because, again, time and again, especially at the beginning of Season 4 with Way of the Warrior, it's always about show them how strong you are, show them how much fortitude you have, show them that you don't back down from a fight, show them that you'll meet them on the field of battle with batleth in hand and glory in your heart, and a sniper will take out your enemy before the first batleth can be swung. Yeah. Is that honor? I mean, and then there is one scene where I remember Worf saying, like, it doesn't matter. He goes, there is no honor in losing a battle. Well, yes, there is. There is honor in losing the right way, as opposed to saying that you're honorable, but going and skulking about, in a way that an assassin would do it, as opposed to this noble, proud, strong, forthright warrior would, that you say that you are. So I never really got that. I mean, I understand that, the bird of prey was co-opted in Search for Spock. They were supposed to be the Romulans. It didn't happen, yada, yada, yada.
But the Klingons abuse the word honor the way Vulcans abuse the word logic. I mean, ask a Klingon, well, why are you using this thing that allows you to sneak around and do a sneak attack and you're not facing your enemies? Well, they're going to have an answer for it, no matter what. I mean, in production world, it's, well, we have this cool thing that now we've said the Klingons have, so we're going to let them use it. But I think an in-universe answer is, pick one, because they will figure out a way to justify it, and they'll call it honor, even though somebody else would say, well, that's not very honorable. Yes, it is, because we said it was honor, because we're Klingons and we're honorable. Therefore, doing this thing is honorable. Yeah.
Right. And the thing is that there's a justification about that, again, when Worf said that, well, where's the honor in losing? So we might as well cheat to win? I mean, does that make any sense? No. And I know I'm paraphrasing that, so please, easy with the males. So, but it's kind of like the Cardassians. The Cardassians are very strong in terms of their cultural through line. The Ferengi also with their cultural through line, to the point where it's ridiculous. Yeah. Even the same thing with the Bajorans. So I find it frustrating to watch the way that the Klingons are written in Deep Space Nine, because I don't find them very convincing. Yeah. I don't find them well thought out at all, and I find them at odds with its own culture, because I don't know, like, are you supposed to be the chest-thumping, proud warriors that will march into battle with their batleths shaking in their hands and they're making their enemies shake in their boots, or are we going to fire sniper shots from the trees and then come down and say it was honorable? Yeah. Which one is it? Right? Which one is it?
Yeah, and I don't think there's a good answer to that at all. Well, let me ask you this, okay, when it comes to the way that Klingons would look at a leader who is being honorable, it is the best strategy sometimes to walk away, or to a Klingon, is that always the wrong answer? Because now, look, in this episode in particular, we're making a point of saying, all right, Martok is running from every fight, so much so to the extent that he won't be able to get anything done. Clearly, that's going to be a wrong way to go for him the longer he stays in this position. But it seems like there are Klingon officers who also should trust in the general who well, leads them away from battle if it will protect them to then live to fight another day. He might have been wrong in this episode. The more layers of running away occurred. But I don't think he's necessarily wrong in principle every single time. He might decide our energies are better spent elsewhere if it will protect my crew. I liked where this led. I liked where this led in the idea that this is a study in command and morale. You can only keep making decisions from this protected position for so long without it having some effect on your crew. You actually have to give the crew a reason to want to be there and a reason to act on your orders. So I did think that was adequately explored here from the Klingon perspective.
But see, that's the thing, is I always thought that the Klingon style of command is toe the line, or you're gonna be dealt with severely with some pretty hefty consequences. That's what like a military culture, and in this case, kind of like this, hyper stylized version of a military culture is about. It's about the strongest leader passing down the orders, and everyone has to follow. And it's the whole. If you say jump, you say how high. If you hold my breath, for how long. It's not a question of. You're not even supposed to question the authority in a culture like
this. But they're revealing a crack in that system, though, and that crack is that okay, if that's all you're doing, and you're not actually getting anywhere with that, your crew can turn on you. Your crew can and will absolutely turn it. So they're showing the real threat of mutiny here. In this very, hyper dramatic, very, very hyperbolic situation. But, that's something that certainly has happened in the pages of history, that if that's all it is, that crew will turn. Yeah.
But think about it this way, though. In Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, when a gunner, they fired a shot that was not under Krug's orders. Krug shot him.
Yes, he did.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's this is only, 150 years removed? So it's not like culture is going to change. Yeah, less than that. So if anyone, that's what Martok would have done. What happened, and I think that it was a huge disservice to Klingon culture in this episode, from my opinion, I'm no expert, is that they tried to turn Martok and Worf into Federation managers of a crew. Of a Klingon crew. If a Klingon speaks up, or if there's even a hint of mutiny, Martok should have just walked in there and shot somebody.
Right, yeah.
Or have Worf do it. That's a sign of strength. You don't mess around on a Klingon ship. They have slabs for beds. They have the worst possible conditions from a Federation standpoint. There's nothing soft on that ship. Right? So they're trying to insert the diplomacy of Federation leadership in a culture that doesn't adopt to that at all, which is why you have these two opposing styles which don't work, right? Because Worf's well, let me handle the crew. I can do this, but I can do it in a way that'll save you face. No. Krug didn't do that. I'm sure that Kor or Kang or Koloth or Gorkon, Chang, none of those guys would have done this. They would have walked onto their ship and be like, no, send him to the mine sifter. Send him to the mine ripper. Give me your pistol. Thanks. I'm going to shoot you with it and use you as an example.
But Krug had the advantage in Star Trek III of his crew being in a mission where there is a very high probability that they're about to have a fight. So the disciplinary action of killing the gunner is just okay, we're in the thick of it now. We are going to act as a crew under my command. That is it. I have the final say, as opposed to Martok's situation where it's okay, well, we're just running from every fight. Why are we even out here? There's no reason for us to even be on board this ship at this point.
Yes, I would say yes and no to that, because at the point where they're about to try and rescue the B'Math, that's where the crew really turned on him, because it's no, we can't go there. There are going to be Jem'Hadar ships waiting for us. No, we can't do this because of this. No, we can't do that. And they're no, we got to go rescue them.
Yeah.
And Martok's who's running this ship? Me or you?
Yeah, right.
Right? And they are in the thick of it, right? So, like I said, it's someone needed to really be a heavy hand, you know, in this situation. And like I said, I don't know why Martok was on that ship at all. I mean, if anything, it would have been like, you know, Martok's like, I need you to be on my side, but I need to know that you can run a ship our way. Like, Martok doesn't have to prove anything. So why is he trying to prove something on this ship? I don't get that part.
Yeah.
Right? He's not Lieutenant Martok. He's General Martok.
Yeah.
Right?
That's very true.
You know, he's like one of the most respected and revered military leaders of the Empire. Right? And now he's in charge of a bunch of misfits on a garbage scout type battle cruiser or bird of prey, of which Worf and Dak could easily take command of. So why is he on that ship again?
Because he's been through a lot. But
he's still a general.
He is. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Right? So I don't know. Like I said, that's just where I don't know exactly where they're coming from.
Hey, I want to talk about the Jem'Hadar here really quickly, because I was surprised to hear Klingons. And now, of course, he's a Klingon who's stirring things up a bit. But you hear a Klingon say that the Jem'Hadar are better than us, meaning that they have nothing to fight for. They're just programmed that way. I would think that in Klingon logic, the opposite would be true. But it is an interesting line to follow. So, you know, to a Klingon, is an enemy with nothing to fight for more dangerous because they'll do anything and they're unpredictable? What about the idea that someone who has something to fight for is more motivated? Or is this kind of a special case because the Jem'Hadar are literally programmed to just be killing machines, and that they'll do whatever it takes to just kill their enemies?
This is a tough, a great question, John, and it's a tough point of observation because we have seen episodes where Jem'Hadar have challenged their own existence and programming.
They sure have.
You know, the episode where Dr. Bashir was asked to create counter-agent to the Ketracel White so that they could break free of the Vorta, they were trying to find a code of honor because they just didn't want to be existing as just killing machines. And there have been, on occasion, other examples of that. So I know that the Klingons obviously don't know this, but we have seen examples of Jem'Hadar they're trying to explore their own existence. Why are we doing this? Are we created just for the sole purpose of being these robotic, you know, mindless killing machines? But at the same time, though, I think when, say, Lesket was looking at them, I guess from the ability for them to achieve their goals, I think in some way he's like hearkening back to a different time of the Empire where it was like, again, like, you know, you would have these legendary, you know, the legendary three, the Kor Kang Koloth, you know, coalition, and they would be in charge of their D7s, and they would just go barnstorming through the galaxy and taking what they want and using their every single tactical advantage to their disposal in order to do that. And obviously they got stopped on Organia, but up until that point, everyone knew how brutal the Klingons were. I mean, Kirk made a point of that. You know, and I think that, say, someone like a Lesket, like harkening back to like better times, like, man, we used to be the Jem'Hadar. Remember that? Remember those times? Yeah. You know, those were good times. Yeah. Right? I want those back. And now we got this, you know, this soft serve ice cream general, you know, who's afraid of his own shadow, let alone, you know, can't even fire on the backside of our enemy.
Right.
When they're at their most vulnerable. So what are we doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's this sort of one final thought that I'll throw out there before we go to our wrap-up, and that's that Worf, since the time we met him at the beginning of Next Generation, this is a character who has tried on a lot of different identities. And when you think he's gotten it, when you think he's settled in who he is, it's like, nope, he's still not. Nope, he still can't figure out how to operate, whether he is Starfleet or Klingon, or who he's getting rejected or dejected by from week to week, month to month. Interesting here that he's trying on a new identity and specifically a new family here. I wonder if this one will stick, and I wonder if he's going to tell Alexander.
I was just thinking that you stole my very idea, which is amazing. Because I'm like, does Alexander get a new family too? Does that work? Or maybe, you know, Kern, since he's still out there somewhere with a new identity, maybe he can also be brought into the House of Martok.
And the correct response to that, Norman, is who and who?
I forgot already. Yeah. There was some... No, you know what? I forgot. Must not have been that important. At least it wasn't to Worf. Oh, so many emails coming right now. I can hear it.
Real.
I can just the tap, tap,
Too
tap.
real.
That's actually, I like that they're going in that route and they're trying to create this really interesting relationship with Martok and Worf. And JG and Michael Dorn are fantastic acting with each other. I think that's really, really interesting. I do have one question, though, and this is probably, these are the emails that I would like. So you had Worf with his sash, right? And you had the symbol for the House of Moog. But what was the symbol on top of that? Because I don't want to Google that.
I wondered that too. Yeah, if anybody knows, drop us a line.
Is that like the symbol of his firstborn? Is that a reminder that
Still
he has
doesn't know
a son?
who that is. Yeah.
All right. I don't remember either. Must not have been that important.
Which warrior race actually has the best warriors? There's only one way to find out. You guessed it, Battle of the Gamma Quadrant Stars. Maybe that'll happen.
All right, Norman, you have performed with honor. Now we've reached the end of our mission. So I will ask you, sir, about the morals, meanings, and messages that we may have learned along the way. But before we get there, how about the episode? How does it hold up for you? Does it stand the test of time?
I thought this episode was, and I use this very, I wouldn't say sparingly, because I actually did like this episode for the most part, but I would say that it's just a serviceable episode. It doesn't really flounder too much, in my opinion. I mean, the story is very tropish. It's very much we got to get the morale up. We got to get the mission done. Like I said, it's not really offensive in any capacity. The production was kind of like just right on the line. Everything was just very much right in the middle. It was very neutral, nominal type of episode. I didn't really, except for David Graff's his Lesket. I thought that that performance and that scene where he was talking about the Jem'Hadar and how they're just these vicious killing machines and who are we and how are we supposed to beat them? They're better than us. Like, rarely do you see that ever happen in Klingon culture when a Klingon would admit that. Yeah. I thought that was a great piece of acting. I just never really felt like this episode gave me something to think about anywhere past maybe one or two scenes.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you called out David Graff, because he made the most of every scene that he was in, and he made the most out of every bit of dialogue that he was given. So he was really a standout. I think I'm going to rank this one a little higher than you do here. To me, there was a lot of fun to be found in this episode. It's funny, you said Heartbreak Ridge, and to me it's like it's that and it's Bad News Bears. It's just like the losing team with the losing coach. What are we going to do with these guys? Except this has a higher body count than the Bad News Bears, presumably. And look, I said it before and I'll say it again. I love this Martok. There's so much of what we've gotten of Klingons up until this point that I feel like is a lot of just the very two-dimensional, like clanking the tankards of blood wine and yelling about honor. But when you see a character like this played by somebody as gifted as JG, you see all the cracks in the armor, and you see all that fallibility, and his really just racked with indecision and the anxiety around his orders and his command. There's so much more relatable to that, and really improves our understanding of Klingons, and Klingons as a reflection of some aspect of humanity. So much more than, again, just shouting about honor, and even more so than Worf always making boneheaded decisions, of which we have seen many. This episode to me was sort of like Martok's Kobayashi Maru, but the answer here was to do what's right, regardless of what the dangers were. He had to be slapped back into the reality of that, which is, no, those people need help. Yes, there is danger around. Go help them, because that's what you do as a commander, and you do that in a way that motivates your crew to follow you to do that, even though it's a dangerous mission. This was also a good look at life on a bird of prey. We've had a few episodes that have explored that a bit. Not that I need a ton of that in Star Trek, but if you're going to do it and you're going to center an episode on one of those ships with a Klingon crew, do it right. You give the ancillary characters some personalities, some differences, some difference in motivation. Again, which one part of that I feel like they didn't adequately plot out and explore. But for the ones that we did get, and particularly Lescott, again, David Graff, phenomenal performance. I feel like it really fired on all of those cylinders for me. So I will say that for me it holds up, and probably the enjoyability factor slightly higher for me than it was for you. But more importantly, morals, meanings, messages. Did you find any of those here to mine and to share with our audience?
Well, would you mind if I just rolled this back for a second? Because there's something that I would like to counterpoint about Martok in this episode.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't necessarily disagree with that there were cracks in his armor. Mm-hmm. It's just that I never found him in this episode, in his performance and the way that he was on the ship. I never found him in a way where he felt like he was conflicted about his leadership. Everyone believed he was conflicted about his leadership, but I always felt that he was coming from a point of more tactical decision making. Like, yes, why would we run into battle against the Jem'Hadar ship when there's no reason to?
Yeah.
Why would we want to fire on them and let them know where we are when we don't have to? I thought that was very tactical for an experienced commander. It's just everyone around him's like, no, fire on them. You know why? Because we got to fight. Yeah. We got to war this up,
Yeah.
We gotta get our scalps, and we got to get them now. Mm-hmm. But Martok's like, why?
Right.
Right? We're here to save those people on the Bemoth, and if we don't get there, we die, they die.
Yeah.
That's honorable? No. And I like the stance that he took on that. It's just everyone around him was like, oh, no, he's a coward because he's not fighting on people.
Yeah. Well, that is the Klingon way. That is the Klingon line. So, yeah.
I guess so. So that's just kind of like where I'm like, why is everyone getting all up on Martok?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you're not wrong. I think somewhere along the line, though, they are saying, like, look, even if he does take them into battle, if and when that opportunity arises, he's lost their respect. He's lost their willingness to do a good job for him. And from the Klingon perspective, that's all going to be about victory and winning and honor. So he's kind of losing on all fronts there. That's why I posed the question in the last segment, which is, is it necessarily a bad thing to run away when that actually does save your crew for the next job, for the next mission, when they are going to be needed? But this crew was terribly run down. They weren't given any. Yeah. Maybe they did need that extra blood wine on board,
Well, that was a smart move. That was a smart move on Dax's part. A nice little peace offering. But I mean, that does lead into, what's the message? At least for me, is that, morale is a very powerful. It's almost intangible, this kind of a force, amongst people, and certainly within teams. I've always believed that, and this is coming from having to manage, teams of people, in my professional life, that when you have a group of people and you put a challenge before them. I did this in management action planning, which is kind of like this program that teaches you how to manage people. You see like all these different prototypes or archetypes of characters and personalities that you're dealing with. As soon as the challenge is set, you see how these people kind of rise to their specific designation, either in the team or how their personality takes over. You have the alpha. There's always going to be an alpha. Whether or not that alpha is a good leader is beside the point, but there's somebody out there who believes that they should be the leader. Then you have the counselor, which is like the person who they know that they do better from behind, even though that their inception for ideas are the ones that are adopted. They're very smart. They're very tactical. You have workhorses. They just need to know what they need to do. They need to know the 1, 2, and 3 and the A, B, and C, and they will do that to the letter. But the most important character that you need to look out for is the character like Lescott in this episode. They call him the onboard terrorist, right? So you have the onboard terrorist, and they purposefully sabotage the morale of that team because they believe that whatever they do, it's the wrong decision, and they're going to fail no matter what. So this person's only avenue of influence, of success of his own, is to ruin the chance of success for others. That is a very specific personality in these crews.
Right.
And Lescott was always doing that. He was always talking about how we're terrible, how the Jem'Hadar are better, how we're going to lose, how we're cowards. That's that scene that you're talking about, John, where they really needed to nip that in the bud. They never showed that.
Yeah.
They didn't really show that was an important scene. So I thought the crew dynamic on the ship was very much like this. You had people that needed to lead, they needed to do, they needed to get through it. They just wanted to, to find and recapture their glory. It doesn't necessarily mean it makes them winners, but it gets them to a point to try and turn that negative momentum into a positive something. They needed some kind of a win, whether it was an actual literal win or a moral victory or somewhere in between. But the only thing is that I just had to work really hard to see that in that episode.
Right.
In this episode.
Right.
How about you?
No, I mean, I think you sum it up nicely. This episode is more an exploration of, command style, motivation, etc. But really, it's about the character dynamic. And fortunately, you've got some strong actors at the top, particularly JG. And of course, look, Michael Dorn, he's always going to turn in a good performance. I don't think that's in question. But wisely, he is overshadowed here by JG because it's really got to be about him and where his failings are here. And then you bring in this guest star like David Graff and just boom, the magic is made there. So it's an exploration about that. And I go back to why I really respected and responded to that Shakespearean theatrical idea of letting the action take place off screen, off stage, so you can focus on what the characters are going through. They really did a fine job of that. So it is about that. It is about where the characters are, how they're interacting. And all I can say is the beatings will continue until morale improves. That's that's the Klingon lesson of higher management.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. If you would like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Yeah, hey, big shout out to the people who have joined us there recently at Patreon. Love all of your messages. I love the community and the contact that we have there and doing our live hangouts. Looking forward to the next one.
Especially in this day and age with everything being a little bit tight and we're coming into the holiday season, we can't thank you enough for all the support that you're continuing to give us. And our Patreon numbers are growing, and we are so very, very thankful for that. Enjoy all the great Roddenberry podcasts at podcast.roddenberry.com. And for more Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
On the next Mission Log, Children of Time.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com. Let me apply Vulcan logic to the topic of Klingon honor. Error, error, error. Please reboot this device at your earliest convenience. Error, error, error. End transmission.
Podcast.roddenberry.com, the Roddenberry Podcast Network.